now to the Gaza Strip. And we're accustomed to think of protests in Gaza usually being directed against Israel. But these demonstrations inside the Palestinian enclave that broke out last week are instead aimed at the ruling Hamas movement. And Hamas security forces have responded brutally and blamed the demonstrations on agents of the rival Palestinian Authority.
But demonstrators there insist they are independent activists calling themselves by the slogan, "We want to live," and taking to the streets to protest high taxes and Gaza's impoverished living standards. Now they're calling for more protests and a general strike on Wednesday and Thursday. Mohammad, let's start with that. What do you think we can expect? I imagine that the next days is going to be really a test of how effective Hamas's crackdown on protesters has been.
Absolutely, or how popular this popular movement is. We'll find out tomorrow. A general strike has been called for Wednesday and Thursday, as well as protests throughout different squares and areas within the Gaza Strip. Hamas has used heavy-handed crackdown on many of the protesters, imprisoning many of them, even though in the last couple of days have released a number of journalists and some of those that it has arrested in the last few days. And we've seen that this brutality in dealing with the protests have produced something. Today we haven't really seen this widespread protest as we've seen in the last few days. However, I think the litmus test would be on Wednesday and Thursday, and Hamas is facing probably one of its most threatening time to its or test to its existence, aside from Israel and wars with Israel, since it's taken control of the Gaza Strip in 2007.
Well, let's just try to assess just how serious that threat is. How far is Hamas willing to go to suppress these protests?
Well, it has actually going as far as one would expect. It has lost a lot of credibility among Palestinians who had a lot of respect for Hamas, and Hamas had a lot of credibility among Palestinians in terms of it being called a resistant movement, and it allows for space for dissent. That is not the case, and many negative reaction from Palestinians in both the Gaza Strip as well as the West Bank. And Hamas apparently, to keep its grip on power, will do whatever it takes and whatever it needs to continue being in power. It blames the Israel, of course. It blames the Palestinian Authority, and it says it's because of the Israeli blockade as well as sanctions imposed by President Abbas and the incitement from Ramallah, from the Fatah movement, that led to all these protests. Again, I think the next couple of days, Calev and Nurit, will be a huge test for this popular movement, as it's called, to see if it's going to garner a lot of support of if many people, more than the hundreds that we've seen in the last few days, would actually go out. And let's also see if the business owners will actually adhere to the call for general strike tomorrow. If that is the case, then Hamas is in for a very difficult time now.
All right, Mohammad Al-Kassim.